Good evening and welcome to Channel 6 News at 10. I'm Ron Burgundy, and we have an exclusive interview for our viewers tonight. Our guest this evening is former United States President John F. Kennedy. Kennedy was born in Brookline, Massachusetts in 1970. He grew up there for 10 years and was one of 9 siblings. Mr. Kennedy attended Harvard University, where he played football with his brother Joseph for a short time. He suffered a spinal injury and was never able to return to the game. In the fall of 1941, Mr. Kennedy entered the United States Navy with his brother Joseph, who was a pilot and sent off to Europe. After the war, he became involved in politics and ran for Congress. Several years later, in 1960, Kennedy was elected President of the United States with Lyndon B. Johnson as his Vice President. This was a historical election because he became not only the youngest president, but the first Catholic president to ever be elected. And now to Jamisha Williamson with our exclusive interview with John F. Kennedy.
Thanks, Ron. I'm here with John F. Kennedy. Thank you for joining us tonight.
It's my pleasure, Jamisha.
I'd like to start by asking you questions about your childhood, if you don't mind. There have been several rumors spreading that you are not always the healthiest child in your neighborhood. People have accused you of being put in and out of the hospital several times. Would you care to explain these rumors?
Sure. Well, when I was 3, I was diagnosed with a case of scarlet fever. So for the first 2 months, I was in and out of the hospital. Since I wasn't able to go outside and play with my friends all the time, I grew very fond of reading many historical books, and my personal favorite, the New York Times. When my brother Joe and I were in college, my father was elected the United States Ambassador to England, so my whole family moved there, except for me and Joe.
That sounds like it must have been hard on you. Joseph served in the Second World War. Was he any influence on you joining the Navy?
No, we both joined at the same time with the guidance from my father.
Well, it has been speculated that since your father was so wealthy, he had lots of influence and friends in the military, which allowed him to pay your way into the Navy even though the Army had rejected you based on your health. Do you have any knowledge of this occurrence?
No, my father did not pay off anyone in order to pass the health test in the Navy. I was let in because I was healthy enough, and my failure with the Army had nothing to do with it.
Okay, so even though we have evidence to prove that your father paid off a family doctor to provide a fake good health certificate, you're still going to deny it? Well, I think we should get a professional medical opinion on this situation. Here with me now is Dr. Janet Travell. Dr. Travell, will you please tell me about your affiliation with Mr. Kennedy?
Well, I started off as the Kennedy's family doctor and cared for Jack for several years before he was elected president.
Jack?
Jack, that was the nickname his family and close friends called him. But yes, after he was elected president, he requested that I join his staff as a White House physician.
So, in your professional opinion, was Mr. Kennedy in good health at his time of enrollment into the Navy?
No, at the time of his enrollment, he had several illnesses which would have prevented him from serving his country during the war. He was in no condition to pass a naval health screening, so his father came to me and offered a bribe in order to allow Jack to be accepted into the Navy.
Thank you, Dr. Travell, for that information. Now let's turn back to our discussion with Mr. Kennedy. Please tell me about your run for the political office, and how did the stress of such events affect your health at the time?
Well, my original plans were to become a writer, but after Joe tragically died in a plane crash in 1944, my career plans changed. I ran for Congress in 1946 and was elected the Senator of Massachusetts. At the time, I was having some serious back problems, so I underwent 2 surgeries to fix them. I had to use crutches for a while, but I would rather have been dead than spend the rest of my life on those goddamn crutches.
Did you have any other health problems?
Besides my back problems, which were from old football injuries and wartime injuries, which were corrected with the surgeries, of course, I was in good health.
Okay, glad to hear that you think you were in good health. Moving on to your presidential campaign, we have sources who tell us that you used your father's influence and money to charm the press and influence potential voters to vote for you during your presidential campaign. Do you have any comments to say about this information?
No, I did not use my father's influence to win votes. I did, however, campaign very heavily in the primary elections, and I spoke with voters in order to gain their approval. I did not cheat in the election process in any way. I won because the American citizens thought I was the better candidate.
Many people have pointed out that they thought your time as president, there were always 2 men standing to the side of you, carrying black bags. What were the purpose of these?
The 2 bags contained the procedures for launching nuclear attacks if ever a situation like that were to occur. Given the circumstances of my presidency at the time, it was necessary for them to be with me at all times.
Well, it has been brought to our attention by Dr. Travell that one of the bags was used for another purpose. Dr. Travell, what's the second purpose of the black bag that always accompanied Mr. Kennedy?
One of the bags contained the medicines which were needed to keep Jack alive and well. What people don't know is that when Jack was visiting his family in London, he collapsed and was rushed to the hospital. He was later diagnosed with Addison's disease. Addison's disease is an autoimmune disease that destroys parts of the adrenal glands, which causes the adrenal glands to not produce enough hormones. This results in constant fatigue, complications from infections, and darkening of the skin, which is why Jack appeared to be so tan all the time. However, doctors soon discovered that cortisone injections extended the life of Addison's disease patients. Once it became clear that Jack's life would depend on these injections, his father placed corticosteroids in safe deposit boxes all over the world. So one of the bags did contain steroids, amphetamines, painkillers, and other bags which were needed to keep Jack alive.
Thank you for clearing that up for us. Well, we are out of time for tonight, and I would like to thank you for joining us this evening and giving us the opportunity to talk to you, Mr. Kennedy.
Yeah. It was my pleasure. God bless America.